So I was originally going to do my speech on why it's better to be an independent contractor rather than an employee, but after doing my research, I feel like it's the other way around. It's better to be an employee. I learned that it was better because many reasons, but I want to start by saying, after reviewing the demographic sheet, many of us are already employed, but for the rest of us that aren't, it's kind of important to know the differences and know what direction you want to go, especially with your career. Let's start by defining the two terms so we're on the same page. An employee is an individual who has dictated tasks, hours, and they're also entitled to compensation such as health insurance, overtime, and state-mandated breaks and workers' comp. An independent contractor is someone who's hired to complete a task on their own schedule with their own means and own methods, and they're often not qualified for the same compensation as a standard employee. Now, even though those two definitions may sound black and white, they're really not, and there is a lot of gray area, and individuals and employers often get confused. It's easy to misclassify yourself or be misclassified by your employer, so here's a few questions you can ask yourself to kind of really find out the difference. I just did 4. There was quite a lot of options that I found in Anthony Strawson's article, Employee or Independent Contractor, but the 4 that I thought were easiest to understand and ones that we could ask each other now or straight out of college is, number 1, are you working full-time for one person, or are you permitted to work for several different employers? Oftentimes, if you're an employee with a contract with the company, it's the only company you can work for. Number 2, do you provide your own equipment? If you are, such as construction, you're probably your own independent contractor. Do you hire your own helpers, such as other construction is a really good example. That's why I keep going back to that. But often your own work, day laborers, or anything like that. And number 4, are people in similar positions classified as employees or independent contractors? You can always use people in the same position to kind of get to know them and what they're doing with their company. Now, a kind of reason I picked this topic was growing up, my dad has always been an independent contractor because he doesn't like working for other people, which, has its ups and downs. He's had a few different jobs that he dictated his own schedule and methods for both jobs. I picked 2 of them, which I thought were good examples. For 5 years, my dad was a freelance solar agent, which was his own job. He was paid solely on commission, so it's up to him how much or how little work he put in to make how much money he wanted to make at that job. And then my dad's current job right now was another example of an independent contractor where he's a delivery driver for this company called Elite Delivery Services. And he has the option every day to go down to the main office and pick up a driving route, and he can kind of get it done throughout the day, take his own lunch breaks when he wants, as long as he gets it done on time. Now, if your employer doesn't specifically outline your job title in your contract, it's confusing and can lead to greater issues. In the article, Employee versus Independent Contractor Status, this is a long one, A Critical Decision for California Employers by Thomas Riley, Riley shares what can happen to an employer if they either accidentally or purposely misclassify their employees. Sometimes employers will misclassify their employees as independent contractors on purpose to try and avoid some of the taxes they have to pay with employees. As an employer, they're liable to cover the damages of unpaid overtime, meal, rest breaks, medical retirements, workers' comp, etc., that they would have to pay if their employees were classified as employees instead of independent contractors. And in some lawsuits, wrongly classified individuals can recover the legal value of the term stated. So say your employee has been calling you an independent contractor and paying you as such. If you find out later that you've been doing work in the scope of an employee, you can sue your company and recover on those terms. And now that I've told you the differences of tech labor, I want to lay out why one is better than the other. As an independent contractor, there's a few things you have to pay attention to. And according to one of the code of conduct from the IRS, an independent contractor is considered self-employed in the eye of the law, and they will pay self-employment tax, which is roughly right now 15.3% of your income, which sounds high. Another downside to being an independent contractor is you're liable for any accident or problem that may arise on the job, which I learned in my business law class, one of my favorite classes. For example, if you're sued on the job site, you as an individual are responsible for all damages, and if you were an employee, your employer would be responsible for negligence or wrongdoing committed within the scope of your work if you were an actual employee. However, being an independent contractor does have its benefits, don't get me wrong, that's why my dad does it. Independent contractors are entitled to a large number of tax write-offs that normal employees wouldn't be entitled to. For example, someone who's self-employed is eligible to receive tax refunds for things like they use every day to get their job done, gas, equipment, vehicle mileage, even wear and tear on your vehicle. It's honestly, the list goes on and on about the tax write-offs you can manage to pull together. As previously mentioned, independent contractor gets to dictate their own schedule and methods of work. That's why my dad does it. He loves the flexibility. And now being an employee comes with a lot of benefits that we may take for granted that we think kind of should come with every job. For example, you are not self-employed, so you don't have to pay that self-employment tax. Instead, your employer gets taxed 7.6%. And unlike an independent contractor, you receive benefits and protection from your employer, both a numerical value benefit such as health insurance or the legal protection, which I mentioned earlier that the independent contractors don't have. I mentioned before that while at work, okay, I just mentioned that. And then what about while you aren't at work? As an independent contractor, you aren't covered unless you choose to get your own health insurance, which is recommended. But when you aren't at work, most full-time employees do receive benefits, retirement, 401k, health insurance, overtime, workers' comp, and the guaranteed break periods. And another example, my mom, who always usually works on the employee side, has been working for the Winco Foods Corporation for 6 years. And right now, she's receiving full health, dental, and vision insurance for a family of 4 for $40 a month, which is extremely low and a discount rate she'll only get through her employer. And there are downsides of being an employee, but the benefits usually outweigh those. As an employee, you do have to adhere to your employer's schedule, and you can't control as many aspects of your work, and you might not be paid as much. However, the benefits are much better and truly outweigh the negatives when you factor in the money that you're saving with the benefits. And after this speech, I hope I'm able to change your mind, just like I did change my own. And you can see it's a little bit on the safer side to be hired as an employee rather than an independent contractor.
Okay, teammate.
Love your topic. I think you delivered it really well. You laid out really clear transitions. I was never watching the two and that's an topic that's something I think about a lot.
I know construction's a big, big deal. Yeah.
I think you had a great credibility statement talking about your dad. You